All right, thank you very much, Dan. In your programs, and I didn't bring them up here, in your programs there are a number of pieces of material. First, there's the spring edition of Insight. Also, the spring editions of the ZionsBank Index on Consumer Attitudes and on Consumer Prices. Also included in the study is that economic impacts of Utah exports prepared specifically for this conference. I'd like to introduce John Downen from the University of Utah and that bureau who prepared these findings to describe it to us. John.
Thank you, Mark. As Mark noted, we, at the request of ZionsBank, the Bureau of Economic and Business Research at the University of Utah, examined the economic impacts of Utah's international exports. We used export data from the Census Bureau's Origin of Movement series, which provides the value of U.S. exports by origin state with details for the top 25 commodities. Utah exports a broad range of manufactured goods, including electronics, food and other animal products, aircraft engines, automotive parts, medical devices and pharmaceuticals, personal care products and sporting goods, and industrial goods like valves, drilling tools, and fuses. In 2010, Utah exported $13.6 billion worth of goods internationally, 70% increase over 2007 when the state's exports totaled $8 billion, and all of this is at constant 2010 dollars. 2010's exports represented 1.1% of the United States' total exports, up from a share of just 0.7% in 2007. Utah has consistently had a trade surplus in goods, at least, over the period, with the value of exports exceeding that of imports by $4 billion or more. At $7 billion, gold and silver accounted for half of the value of Utah's 2010 exports. Excluding gold and silver, Utah exported $6.6 billion worth of goods last year. After gold, the state's largest export by value in 2010 was computer memory, with $1.2 billion worth shipped from Utah. The next largest was miscellaneous food preparations at $298 million. And then rounding out the top five were molybdenum, civilian aircraft engines, safety airbags. These five goods represented 35% of the value of Utah's total non-gold and silver exports last year. 10 countries accounted for 79% of Utah's exports in 2010. Top destination by far is the United Kingdom. Last year, Utah shipped almost $4.2 billion worth of goods to Britain, 31% of the state's total exports. The next largest recipients were Canada, importing $1.3 billion worth of Utah goods, and 9% of the total, and India at $1.1 billion and 8%. The other top importers were Hong Kong, Switzerland, China, Taiwan, Singapore, Mexico, and Japan. To calculate the impacts, we use the RIMS IO model from the Bureau of Economic Analysis. And when calculating them, we excluded gold and silver. Utah's exported gold was primarily mined in other states, then shipped to Utah for final processing and export. Essentially, none of the gold mined in Utah is exported. Therefore, gold exports do not provide a substantial number of jobs for the state. Furthermore, the economic impact multipliers for gold and silver are for the industry, primary smelting and refining of non-ferrous metal, and as such, do not account for gold and silver's monetary characteristics and role as an inflation hedge, which have significantly influenced their values in recent years, as we have just discussed. Total estimated impacts on Utah's gross state product as a result of the state's international exports of goods, excluding gold and silver, grew from $4.4 billion in 2007 to $5.9 billion in 2010. Again, these are inflation-adjusted 2010 dollars. These impacts are equivalent to approximately 4 to 5% of annual gross state product. Utah's international exports generated an estimated $2.9 billion in total earnings in 2010, up from $2.3 billion in 2007. The employment impacts of Utah's exports range from an estimated 54,955 full and part-time jobs in 2007 to 75,721 jobs in 2010. On average, Utah's commodity exports support approximately 65,775 jobs each year, roughly 4% of the state's total non-farm employment, as defined by the BEA. These impacts include direct, indirect, and induced effects. With direct effects are spending on wages and other goods and services by the exporting firms. Indirect effects are spending by these upstream firms that supplied the goods and services. And then induced effects are the results of spending by the employees of the exporting and upstream firms. I would like to condition these results a little bit. They do not include trade and services, data for which are not available at the state level. And these are sizable, representing an average of 30% of the United States total exports in between 2007 and 2010. Utah provides financial, engineering, and management consultation services, among others, to international customers. These industries have large multipliers, which are larger than most of those for the manufacturing sectors. So obviously, excluding this is a significant understatement of the impacts of international exports by the state. Also, the top 23 commodities, after we excluded gold and silver, represented on average just 55% of Utah's total non-gold and silver exports. So we had to do a little fudging to scale up the results to account for all non-gold and silver exports, and did that simply by taking the share of the top 23 of the total exports by value and divided that into the resulting impacts. And also, this is just sort of a technical note that the export value reported by the Census Bureau includes transportation to the port of export, and the Bureau of Economic Analysis breaks out the share of the purchaser's value of exported goods by producer's value, and then transportation costs, and then any wholesaler's margin. Since we didn't know where the goods were exported from, shipped from, where they left the country, excuse me, whether they were transported there by Utah-based firms or whether any Utah-based wholesalers were involved, we used just the producer's share of the value of the exports, which was about 83% of the final value. So given all these caveats, the results presented in the study are most likely a conservative estimate of the impacts of Utah's exports on the state's economy. Thank you.
So I think the answer then to the question I asked Dan North, what are my 4 kids going to do? We need to export more to create more jobs, right? That's the answer. All right, if you turn your attention to the video screen, we have a special presentation by Administrator Karen Mills of the Small Business Administration.
Hello, everyone. I'm Karen Mills, the Administrator of the SBA. I want to thank ZionsBank for hosting this important conference on international trade. And I also want to recognize them for partnering with us on a new program, Small Loan Advantage, which offers streamlined loans up to $250,000. All of you here today are critical to helping small businesses grow and create jobs. It's particularly important that we work together to support small exporters. They're the ones helping America outbuild, out-innovate, and outcompete the rest of the world. The Small Business Jobs Act, signed by the President in September, is a great example of how we can put wind at their back. Through the Jobs Act, small businesses are getting the capital they need to meet global demand for made-in-America products. A few examples. Through that new law, we raised SBA's international trade loan limits from $2 million to $5 million. Already, we've supported nearly $120 million in lending through these larger export loans alone. We've also raised the limit of our quick turnaround export express loans to $500,000. In addition, we'll soon be giving grants totaling $30 million to state-based export assistance programs for the next 3 years. And our Jobs Act is helping us train our counselors across the country in how to help small firms break into the trade game. These efforts are critical to supporting the President's goal of doubling exports over the next 5 years. That's why, on a broader scale, the National Export Initiative is aligning all of the export resources throughout the federal government. We are working together to identify, prepare, connect, and support more exporters, especially the small, innovative firms that have big potential to create good jobs. And that's important because export-related jobs pay up to 18% more than average. And finally, we're making sure that new trade agreements, like the one we're working on with Colombia, will provide even more opportunities for our small businesses here at home. So thank you all again for taking an active role in helping U.S. small businesses bring their goods and services to new markets. Together, we can continue to help small businesses do what they do best: create jobs, strengthen our economy, and win the future.
Thank you, Administrator Karen Mills. We appreciate our partnership with SBA. In fact, Stan Nakano, are you here? I'd like him to stand. He's the director of the SBA here in Utah. Stan's way there in the back. Karen Mills highlighted the how important small businesses are to our economy and our prosperity. She mentioned how small business must outbuild, out-innovate, and out-compete. I would like to introduce you to a small business company in Utah that has done exactly what Administrator Karen Mills stated.
Many Utah companies are creating new jobs and new business opportunities by developing their international operations. And each year, ZionsBank recognizes Utah companies demonstrating a broad international reach and global economic leadership with the ZionsBank Global Pacesetter Award. These global pacesetters are exporting and importing products and services so they can leverage the opportunities our interconnectivity has to offer. Past winners include Parker International, Ultradent Products, Black Diamond Equipment, Merit Medical, and Ancestry.com. This year's winner is Albion, headquartered in Clearfield, Utah, exporting its minerals to over 100 countries around the world.